Welcome to Health Matters. My name is Sherri Gallant. I'm with Alberta Health Services, and we are so glad that you've chosen to be with us today. To start off our show, we're going to be talking with Liam Hughes. Liam is the manager of the Lethbridge Recovery Centre, also known as the where there's detox beds at Chinook Regional Hospital, and he is also the manager at the Youth Treatment Centre in Lethbridge. Welcome, Liam.
Thank you very much, Sherri. Thanks for having me.
We're sort of doing a touch base a year after the recovery centre opened at Chinook Regional. It's been just over a year. I believe it opened in November?
November 2018.
And so we're going to take a look and see how things have been going. Tell us, sort of give us the bird's eye view of the recovery centre. What is it? What's its mandate?
Sure. So Lethbridge Recovery Centre is a medically supported detox program that's located in the Chinook Regional Hospital. Like you said, we opened in November of 2018. We're an 8-bed program, and part of what we do is provide medically supported detox. So we define this as medical care for individuals undergoing a period of voluntary abstinence from whatever substances they're using. This process takes about 4 to 6 days, during which we'd work to connect them with supports, and the ultimate goal of leading them towards a healthier, lower risk lifestyle.
And detox doesn't have to mean, like, detox can be different substances, right?
That's right. Yeah, we support a broad variety of substances. I'll talk a little bit more later on, but truly alcohol and opiate continue to be the primary substances we see in the program.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. How do people, maybe some don't know about the service or maybe they don't know how to access it. How do they access it?
Great question. So we are a referral-based program. We get referrals from a variety of sources, physicians' offices, from addiction counselors, from family, and from individuals as well. Referrals can come to us in a variety of ways. They can be dropped off with us, they can be faxed to us, and realistically a person can even call into the program to complete a referral over the phone with us. Once we've received the referral, we'll contact the individual within 1 or 2 days to let them know that they've been approved, and to aim to book them in generally within a week of getting the referral approved, depending on wait list times. It is very helpful for a person who's interested to come into medically supported detox to have some kind of a post-discharge plan. So we'd recommend a person work with their healthcare professional or provider, or even come up with a bit of a plan themselves for what their discharge from detox is going to look like, to help ensure a smooth transition either home or to a treatment center, whatever their plans may be. And of course, the staff in the center would also work with that person to create a plan, but we only have so much time with a person.
Exactly. Well, what kinds of supports can a person sort of expect to have there?
So our team has a clinical component, including an RN, a licensed practical nurse, a registered nurse, a licensed practical nurse, a healthcare aide, and a physician, providing 24/7 care and support. The team is then also supported by an addiction counselor and a social worker, and they would work to provide individual counseling to a person, but also to create some of that post-discharge planning and connection or even reconnection to existing supports. The team is then also supported by an assistant head nurse, as well as admin supports for the program. The actual care in the program, we'd provide medications to the individual, as well as intravenous fluids, depending on individual needs. We do also provide a naloxone kit to every individual upon discharge from the program, just to ensure that they have access to emergency medication in the case of a lethal overdose.
Okay. Now that it's been a year, what kinds of changes or evolution have you seen over the course of that year?
Well, aside from daily changes, our biggest change is that we now offer Suboxone initiation in the program. So this is a medication that's typically offered through a community induction, they'd call it, when a person starts on a new medication. But we now offer it on an inpatient basis for those who can't access it in the community for whatever reason. So for a little background, Suboxone is a medication that's used for people with opiate use disorder, and it helps to manage the cravings that they experience, as well as reduces the chance of an accidental lethal overdose. It's important that we reinforce detoxification on its own continues to not be medically recommended for individuals with opiate use disorder or with a primary use of opiates, just for the risk of overdose that can occur after detoxification. And so for that reason, we continue to recommend Suboxone induction for any individuals with an opiate use disorder. The other big change that we've seen is that we have expanded our criteria. Like we mentioned earlier, we are now supporting a much broader range of substances, including things like methamphetamines and cocaine. But truly, the primary substances we're still seeing is alcohol and opiates.
Okay, that kind of gives you a snapshot of what's going on in the city, doesn't it?
It sure does, yeah.
How successful would you say the program is being so far?
You know, it's a hard term to define, but I think as far as numbers go, we've supported 800 referrals into the program and 400 or over 400 admissions. And this represents individuals that have had successful detoxifications, connections to community supports, as well as an opportunity for them to really establish some of those treatment goals in their individual journey. Clients continue to praise the service, specifically the welcoming and caring approach that our staff have taken with a 94% client satisfaction rate. And at this time, we continue to look forward to supporting the Lethbridge community.
Thank you so much for that information. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Sherri.
We'll have you back again in a year or two.
See you next year. Thank you.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm here with Penny Balfour. Penny is, what's your title, Penny?
I'm the Coordinator of Emergency Management for the Canadian Red Cross.
She said it better than I could have. Penny's going to talk to us about emergency preparedness, which is something we might think about and maybe put off. I can tell you, I'm not going to put it off anymore. And you might notice this backpack between us. It's not our lunch. It is an actual emergency preparedness kit, and we're going to show you a little bit later what exactly is in there, give you an idea of what you might need. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. We'll start off by asking, what does emergency preparedness mean for the average family?
That's an easy one. So what we like to talk about is knowing what the risks are in your community, and then making a plan for you and your family. And then once you've made that plan, actually put a kit together.
So you can customize it.
You're definitely going to customize it. You're going to make this kit all about what your needs are. So one of the things that we want you to do is we want you to update this regularly, because you can imagine that a young family is going to change. So 6 months from now, what a young family looks like is going to be very different. So you're going to customize it for yourself. How many people live in your home? Do you have anybody in your home that has any special needs? And you want to make sure that you have that inside of your kit, or have a plan for what that looks like. Again, going back to children. Do you have children? Well, one of the things you're going to put in your kit is some extra clothing and underwear, and you can imagine how that changes over the years. One of the other things you want to think about is the pets in your family, right? So if you have a dog and nobody can go home for the next 3 days or even longer, well, you need to take care of the puppy's needs as well. So food and a leash and something to chew on. One of the things that I often talk about being outside of your home, whether it's for a short term or a long term, and if you're in a reception center or a shelter, it's really boring. So you need things to occupy you. So for the dog, it's going to be a chew toy. For myself, if I were in a situation where I couldn't go home, I would need a book. I need to be occupied by something that's going to fill up my mind. And for others, it might be a game or a puzzle, or all sorts of things.
Crosswords.
Yes, exactly. Sudoku for some people. Yeah.
Man, already these are things I wouldn't have thought of. Tell us about, I understand you have an app to help people.
We do. Really simple app, free of charge. Gotta love that, right? We have 2 of them. So I'll tell you about the preparedness app. You can just go into wherever you get your apps and find the Red Cross preparedness app. And then we also have a first aid app. And the great thing about both of them is that they're very interactive. So if you want to learn more about, what would happen in my community if a tornado hit or if a flood hit, you can go in there and actually play games, and you build your knowledge up that way.
In a fun
and
way.
in a fun way, yeah, that makes you actually want to read rather than just kind of closing the app up. Yeah, so lots of information to be found in there, but the most that I've used it is for the really interactive, what are the risks?
I like the idea of the both of them because they seem to sort of go hand in hand.
Absolutely. Yeah, the first aid app is literally as user friendly as you can get. So if had cut yourself and I didn't know what to do, I can easily open the app and easily pull up cuts and have the app guide me along so that I can provide you first aid support without causing more harm to you.
That's amazing. And so I'm thinking too, if you are in the midst of an emergency situation or a natural disaster, it follows that there could be injuries you need to deal with.
Part of the reason that we want you to be prepared is that this allows you to not have so much of a panic happen. So oftentimes if people don't have a kit prepared and they need to leave their home because of an emergency, they start to kind of panic as to what they bring. I remember talking to a lady several years ago who had to leave her home, and in the decision process, she decided that every single scrapbook that she had ever built was what she needed to put in her car. Now, for her at the time, that seemed logical. She needed to keep those memories, but she didn't have anything tangible or reasonable to actually provide her, her basic needs while she was evacuated.
That would be quite frightening.
It was very frightening for her. And the thing that she remembers about the disaster is that decision process. So, having this kit ready to go allows you just one last thing to worry about, because there are so many things to be navigated when an emergency happens.
Welcome back. In case you didn't realize it, we are sitting in the beautiful, immense, enviable, lovely YMCA on the west side of Lethbridge. It is Ross, you've told me this before. This is Ross Jacobs. He's Director of Marketing, Communications, Security, and
Technology.
technology. That's a big handle. Ross knows everything about this place. And we are going to talk about pool habits, but I want to just throw a fast fact at you about this beautiful facility in terms of its size relative to North America.
Third largest YMCA in North America, and we believe one of the largest, as a result of that, third largest in the world. The two largest are in Calgary, but we haven't found any stats to say that there's bigger ones in Europe or overseas, so we may have the third largest YMCA in the world here.
That just impresses the daylights out of me. I think we're so fortunate.
256,000 square feet of fun. So if you haven't visited us yet, you got to come and do that. It's the core Van Ray YMCA here at ATB Center Phase 2. And, one of the things that we're really proud of is the opportunity to have so many people from southern Alberta and Lethbridge coming to visit us. Fun fact, because you were talking about fun facts, we had over 20,000 people visit on the Christmas break this year. So from the day that the kids went on break to the day that they went back to school, we had over 20,000 users. Really, really close to 26,000, but in that 20 to 25,000 range of people coming through the building. So
That's amazing. And it must be super high compared to what your usage was at the smaller, older facility.
Oh, of course. And I don't think there's any other facility in Lethbridge that handles the amount of people. Like, this is a new thing for our region to have a center that, is so big and can handle so many individual guests and members that, it's a new experience, so some of our community members are used to now having to adjust to maybe for lines if they're coming for a drop-in. If they're not a member with a card who can just come and swipe and come through, there might be a little bit of wait times depending on those peak periods. So, a good trip to the YMCA starts with a call or a visit to our website, find out if there's a lot going on or, if it is, one of those student holidays. Those are key times when we find that our traffic and our volume goes up. So if you apply a little bit of a little bit of common sense to figuring out, okay, is this going to be a busy time, and you don't want to have lines, maybe wait to a different part of the day or a different part of the week to come. But traditionally, Monday to Friday, during our opening hours, it's pretty easy to get access to the facility. But, during those peak times, like the Christmas season, to see a quarter, 25,000 people through, it's pretty significant. So.
And I just want to mention that the pool is not just what we have here. There's so many services and on such a grand scale. But for today, we're going to talk about the pool and specifically how you can maximize you just mentioned planning ahead in terms of numbers, maximize your experience at the pool. We were talking earlier, and you mentioned that, yes, when it's winter, it's cold, people want to come in and have a nice swim in the pool. What kinds of things should they take responsibility for as individuals before they come?
So let's talk first and foremost about temperature. So if we're seeing significant below zero temperatures in Lethbridge, when we had that big set of wind chill or, cold happening in the city, that's one temperature. Your body's going to get used to that. You're going to come indoors and you're going to be in a highly humid environment. On top of that, with temperatures that are probably on the opposite end of the thermostat for where you came in. So if it was minus 20 coming in, you're looking at plus 20 in the pool facility.
A 40-degree change.
Yeah, and so that's an adjustment. And, contrary to what most people think, the body has to adjust to that differentiation. And especially, kids sometimes are not as aware of the changes that their body is doing during those big temperature swings. And so a little bit of foreplanning will help make your aquatic experience and a visit during winter months a little bit easier.
Okay. When we're talking, let's talk about those little kids. What rules might you have around what they wear and how prepared parents and the children should be?
So obviously all children and adults need to have a swimsuit. That's the first step. And then children under the age of 3, according to our rules, are required to have a waterproof diaper and a swim pant. The swim pant provides like a seal around the leg that contains any materials that might be in there. And it's really a good preventative measure, and it is our policy. And so, our lifeguards are trained to look for those signs and to look for those the kids wearing or not wearing those particular materials. And, they could be subject to removal if you don't have that planning in advance. Now, we do sell them here at the facility. So we do have vending machines that have both the pool pant and the waterproof diapers as well. So even if your child is trained, and that's a big question we get is, my child has training, they're potty trained. It does make a difference, though, in terms of the humid environment, the change of temperatures, even within the facility alone. If your child's maybe gone in the hot tub with you for a few minutes, or if they're into the colder pool, which our lane pool is slightly colder than our leisure pool, and the water slides, all that different types of activity and stimulation. Sometimes the cues that come to our trained children in terms of, washroom breaks or things of that matter, don't often come when they're having super excited times. So they may be trained, but their reaction in the pool might be a little bit different. So a little preventative maintenance will help make everyone's pool experience, a little bit stronger.
That's really good information to know, but also very helpful that you carry those products.
Yeah, for sure. And that was one of the things that we wanted to make sure is that we provided all of the tools for success. One of the other things that families can really do that would be a really nice preventative measure is plan what time you come to the facility. So if you just had a large meal, let the food digest. And this isn't about preventing cramps or, those cartoons you see where everybody gets all twisted up. It's more about giving you and your children an opportunity to digest. So if you just had some heavy, greasy food and had a big, treat lunch out and you were having a great time, wait a little bit before coming to the facility, because again, your body will react with those temperature changes, with that activity even. If you're normally not super active and you're coming to the pool, coming to the aquatics facility will utilize muscles that you're not normally used to using, and as a result, your body will react differently. So prepare in advance, make sure you're well digested. The other piece of preparation that's really super important is that your kids have an understanding that, it's okay to stop playing for a minute and utilize the facility if they have to. So if they have to go to the washroom, our universal change room has a reverse design where instead of it being the showers the first thing when you open the door to universal change, it's actually the washrooms. So we did that as a conscious effort to allow kids to have the quickest route to the washroom in the facility. So, that universal change room, you direct your kids, if you got to go, right to that universal change room. It's right the second through the front doors. There are those washrooms, so it gives you a really easy opportunity for the kids to get.
That's brilliant. What about illness?
Yeah, so your health state is really important when coming to any kind of aquatic facility and any kind of recreation. I also encourage you that if you're feeling ill, to maybe avoid physical fitness in the fitness center, or maybe coming in to play basketball. If you're recovering from significant illness, whether that's the flu or a cold or those kind of things, maybe wait. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be here for a long time. So take care of your body first. Make sure you're in a good state, because the symptoms and the things that sort of propagate some of the illness symptoms, especially in around the flu and colds, that hot environment and that temperature change will really cue that. And whether that's an upset stomach or whatever it might be, you may not react. You might get dizzy, short spells if you're not well hydrated, if you're just coming off being sick and you're having hydration issues. How hydrated you are makes a huge difference. And so it's just about, you're coming to have a good, fun pool time. Make sure everyone's had plenty of water. Make sure that, from a dietary standpoint, that you've had time to digest. And, I always recommend coming in that middle afternoon just before dinner. So by the time everyone comes out of the facility, everyone's hungry, they're ready to go and eat, rather than coming earlier in the morning just before lunch or just after lunch. That mid-afternoon into the early evening, then you have that fair chance for everyone to have the most enjoyable time.
February is Heart Month, and we may not be inclined, unless we're clinicians, to think of the heart being connected to the brain. But in fact, if we're talking about hearts during Heart Month, we should also be talking about strokes, and that's what we're going to do today. I am here with Kelly Monroe. She's on my right, and she is a registered social worker with Alberta Health Services. And to my left is Karen Perry. Karen is team lead on the Lethbridge and area stroke team, and she's also in physiotherapy. So the title that you two have chosen for our interview today is Love Your Heart, Love Your Brain. Karen, February is Heart Month, as we've mentioned, and we're talking about strokes, which affect the brain. So what's the link?
There's absolutely a link, Sherri. The brain and the heart are incredibly connected. The heart, as we know, pumps blood throughout our body through the vascular system. So the vascular system connects the heart with the brain and all the rest of our body as well, and brings oxygen-rich blood and other nutrients to the brain that it needs to function. About 15 to 20% of the blood that's pumped out of the heart all goes to the brain. So it's quite a high demand for resources organ that we have, even though it only weighs 2% of our total body weight.
Wow.
It's also the organ that probably uses the most energy in our bodies too, to work. So the brain is absolutely the control center for our whole bodies. Mm-hmm. And as well, though, it's an important piece that we can't see as easily with the brain is the mind piece as well. So that's our thinking, our memory, our ability to pay attention to many different things. For example, when we're driving, being able to solution find and solve problems, and as well our emotional status. A lot of that comes from the brain. So being able to manage that, because our thoughts affect our emotions and vice versa as well. So very much so they're interconnected. And if there's dysfunction in one, it's going to have an impact on the other one. So as I'm sure everybody's hearing lots about with the heart, if there's things like misrhythm of the heart, atrial fibrillation, any congenital disorders of the heart, issues with the valves, and the blood is not flowing out of the heart as it should, it's going to impact the brain and our thinking and probably the operation of our body as well. So if we have problems with our hearts, often it puts us at more risk of having strokes in our brains as well. And just wanted to mention, as they've identified with heart attacks for women, that the signs and symptoms of a heart attack actually show up quite differently from men. And they're finding that with women as well. And that even some of the risk factors, if a man and a woman have the same risk factor, for example, atrial fibrillation, women are actually at more risk of developing other heart conditions or brain conditions. So just a good awareness. And there's lots of information out there because they've really been targeting doing more research.
Kelly, what are some of the ways that we can tell our viewers that we can prevent heart issues and stroke?
So we really want to recommend to people on focusing not only on your body, so through physical activity, lifestyle changes, but also through your heart and your mind. So managing and making sure you're aware of your emotional and mental health. So we're looking at healthy choices. This is the big way that we can reduce the risk. So we're looking at diet, eating well, managing weight. So reducing sodium intake, reducing alcohol intake, having that balanced diet is really important, as well as physical activity. We've heard it a lot before, but it's so important. And there's a lot of recommendations out there. Right now, we're saying that 150 minutes of exercise over the course of 4 to 7 days is fantastic. Or a 10-minute brisk walk a day just makes a huge difference in reducing that risk. Quitting smoking is another healthy choice that we can make. Again, we hear about it all the time, but smoking increases the buildup of plaque in our arteries. It increases the risk of blood clots. It decreases the oxygen in our blood. So it's a huge risk factor for people. So being able to quit, cut down is a great way to reduce that risk. And finally, stress. Managing stress, it is a huge risk factor to conditions with the heart and stroke. Lots of research coming out around it. And so being able to acknowledge what stress looks like for you and to be able to manage that is huge. So those are making those healthy choices. Another thing, the final thing, is just managing any existing medical conditions that you may have. So people with AFib or diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, you're at a greater risk of heart conditions or strokes. So just managing that and having more awareness around that.
So stay connected with your physician, take your medication, be a good patient.
Absolutely.
Here with Dr. Jas Singh at Lethbridge Community Health, and we're going to talk about influenza. You might think, as you're watching this in February, that spring is almost within sight and flu season is over, but it in fact is not over. And we're going to talk about influenza immunization and other things that surround this very important topic. Welcome, Dr. Singh.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being with us. As I mentioned off the top, flu season is still in full swing. Can you sort of tell us what parameters are around that?
Yeah, so it's definitely still a good time to get your flu vaccine. Typically, flu season lasts from October to the end of March, and the clinics have been open since October 21st. So it's still a good time to get your vaccine, and it's still available.
Okay, and I think our public clinics might be done at this point, but there's lots of other options for where to find your vaccine. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. So there's 3 major places where you could get vaccinated. One is at pharmacies, one is at public health clinics, and one is at certain family physicians' offices. So you'd have to phone to see if your family physician provides vaccines before booking that appointment. Or if you're ever in doubt, you could just phone the public health clinic and get information. An important distinction is that children under the age of 5 have to be vaccinated at a public health clinic, and they can't be vaccinated at a family doc's office or at a pharmacy.
Right, so just call ahead if you're not sure, or call HealthLink 811, and they can give lots of information too.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. In terms of the vaccine at this point in the season, can we explain why it's not too late and how it will protect people?
Sure. So the unique thing about this season is instead of one predominant strain, there's 3 strains of influenza that have been quite common this season. So even if you've had the flu, having the vaccine will still provide coverage for the additional strains that are out in the public.
Right, because just because you've had one doesn't mean you can't get another one
Absolutely.
if you're unvaccinated.
Absolutely, yeah.
So are we seeing, I remember one year with influenza, it was affecting, because it was a certain strain, it was affecting mostly seniors. One year, I think children were heavily affected. Are we seeing any trends with the viruses that are circulating this year?
Yeah, so we can't really comment on trends now. We can make comments about that after the season, but right now we just generally recommend any children less than the age of 5 or any adults greater than the age of 65 to get vaccinated. In particular because these groups are more prone to having complications, things like pneumonia, as well as any ear infections or worsening of medical conditions.
Right. And I wonder, I mean, we beat this drum a lot, but I don't think we can ever do it enough. Can you explain how when we are vaccinated, we're not just protecting ourselves, we're actually protecting our loved ones and our community?
Absolutely, yeah. So we recommend vaccinations for healthy people in their 20s or 30s because it prevents them from spreading the disease to, say, children or adults over the age of 65 or anyone with medical conditions who could be particularly hit hard by the bug.
So people may have heard the term herd immunity and may not know what that means. Can you explain? I think it sort of goes with the previous question, but what is herd immunity?
Sure. So herd immunity refers to sort of a scientific phenomena where if you have, say, a group of cows and not all of them have immunity, or if one doesn't have immunity, but the rest of the group has immunity for a particular infection, the one that doesn't have immunity won't get sick because the other ones don't act as a source of the illness for the one that doesn't have immunity.
Right, and I like that you used cows because that goes along well with herd. Any other facts that you would like to share with us about influenza?
Other than it's not too late to get your vaccine, the seasons typically go till the end of March. The vaccine is safe, effective. Another misconception is that the vaccine could give you the flu. That's not the case. So actually, if you do get the flu after the vaccine, it's likely from a strain that's uncovered. But the vaccine is safe, effective, and it's still available.
And it does take a certain number of days before it reaches its full effectiveness in the body. So after you have your shot, when is it sort of at full strength?
So typically, I'd say 7 to 14 days after the vaccination.
So on that note, I guess if somebody, because I actually have a friend who won't get her vaccine because she did get the flu after having her vaccine. But she's probably already exposed, not fully protected by the vaccine. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would still recommend getting the vaccine in that case. It was unlikely that the flu she got was due to the vaccine. And also because of the constant sort of mutation within the bug, it's always a good idea to sort of get the seasonal flu vaccine.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add?
No, that's it.
Thank you so much for this. Thanks for being with us. Get your flu shot. We hear a lot of talk these days about the importance of family meals, and sometimes we hear about maybe getting the children involved in actually making the meals. I'm all for that because I'll take whatever kind of help I can get. We are here with Arlene Moore, and Arlene has been with us. She's a regular on Health Matters. She's a wealth of information on nutrition, and Arlene she's a population and public health dietitian with nutrition services with Alberta Health Services, and she works from the Lethbridge Community Health train station unit. Welcome, Arlene.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here too. So when we talk about involving children in the kitchen to help us prepare food, why is that a good idea?
Involving children in the kitchen to help prepare food is a great idea. It can set the foundation for lifelong cooking skills, and it can also encourage healthy eating behaviors. It's really a great thing for families to do together. Even they can build relationships, and it's quality time together for the family. When they learn these new skills, cooking skills, it can build their confidence, and so there's lots of good reasons.
Well, and a person who knows how to cook can always feed themselves.
Yes, of course. It's a matter of survival, we might say.
That's right. It's a
Healthy survival.
very good skill to have. So, let's say you have children of different ages in your family. How do you involve them, sort of as a group, maybe, or in different ways in the kitchen?
Yes, you can involve children of all ages, whether they're young children, preteens, teens. Just before they do any food preparation, get them to wash their hands with soap and water. And it's important to make food activities, age appropriate and safe. So for the younger children, they can do simple food prep such as mixing and measuring, scrubbing vegetables, and even simple recipes that might involve mashing an avocado or preparing a pizza.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about them all handling knives. There's plenty of things to do.
Well, for the older children, the preteens, the teens, they can do more complex recipes, and in fact, it's good to encourage them to do that. And it's important for adults to demonstrate how to use knives, graters, peelers, and electrical appliances safely.
Okay, so can you maybe help our parents who are watching or our caregivers with some ideas for some healthy snacks that children can help prepare?
Yes, I just love thinking of healthy snacks that are fun for kids to prepare. I have two in mind, and one is just taking a banana, dipping it in yogurt, and rolling it in their favorite whole grain cereal. And if their favorite whole grain cereal are big pieces, you can always take a rolling pin and make them smaller. And that would work too. Another great recipe is for kids to make their own trail mix and take a mixture of nuts and seeds. Choose plain nuts and seeds without the added oils or the added salt and sugar, and then combine that with their favorite whole grain cereals. I think they'll love it.
That sounds really delicious and fun too.
Yeah.
Can you provide some examples of where, I mean, those are good ideas, but where could people look for some more ideas?
The Alberta Health Services healthyeatingstartshere.ca website is a great go-to place for nutrition resources. For examples, there's resources on lunches, on snacks, on quick and easy meals and snacks. I really suggest people go in there and look at all that there is to offer.
I agree with you because I go there quite often. I love the site.
Oh, that's great to hear. Great.
And Arlene, do you think too that when children are involved in the preparation of even a snack or a meal, that they may give some more thought to what they're eating and perhaps appreciate it more?
I think whenever children are involved in any family activity, and particularly food, they'll take more interest in what they've cooked, and as long as they're preparing healthy foods, they'll be more likely to eat it and be less choosy about what they want to eat.
Such good advice. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So get those kids in the kitchen, start cooking, and eat together.